Meet V.I.M, aka Gorilla Tag Plus, a subscription for $10 a month where you get access to tons of features. Lots of people say that V.I.M will cause Gorilla Tag to die, but what if I told you it will be the sole reason Gorilla Tag will thrive? I'll be answering 4 questions about V.I.M, and at the end of the video, I'll ask the last most important question of them all. Will V.I.M save Gorilla Tag? Why do we need V.I.M in the first place? Well, Gorilla Tag obviously needs money in order to keep the game up and running, as well as paying the people that make the game what it is today. For revenue, Gorilla Tag used to focus on cosmetics, but Lemming explained in a question and answer video that he didn't prefer to focus on cosmetics, because if he had made a cosmetic, only 0.1% of people would use it most of the time because people had different styles, and there are tons of cosmetics to choose from. So he wanted to pivot to V.I.M, because V.I.M was a way where he only had to focus on one thing that everyone else could buy regardless of preference, because it makes the experience more enjoyable for almost anyone, so it's really versatile. In the long run, this saves the developers time and gives everyone something that can make the game a bit more enjoyable if they were looking for something to spend their money towards. There are obviously upsides and downsides to V.I.M, just like any other subscription in a multiplayer game, but so far, V.I.M is interesting in terms of what it has to offer and what players think about it. But to answer the question, Gorilla Tag needs V.I.M for the same reason they needed shiny rocks or cosmetics, to make enough money to continue the game, and it's hard to say whether V.I.M is essential to Gorilla Tag, but we'll talk about that a bit later in the video. Speaking of whether V.I.M is essential, that brings me to my next question. Does the community actually like V.I.M? I've seen lots of people say they really don't like V.I.M and Gorilla Tag as a whole, and they say it pushes them away from the game because they feel like the only thing Gorilla Tag wants is their wallet. In reality, Gorilla Tag costs more than you'd think to run, with them having over 20 plus employees, paying for the game infrastructures, aka the servers, etc. It's really a lot to handle, and I can even prove this is true by mentioning a different popular VR game that had over 100 million users and is shutting down due to not having any money to keep the game up in the coming months, aka Rec Room. So if you do want to talk about V.I.M, before you do, just have some understanding of what it takes to run the biggest multiplayer VR game on the market. It's unknown to me if V.I.M is necessary for the game to thrive or for the game to have longevity, but it is important to keep this in mind regardless. But back to the original question, I think it's really split across the community. On one hand, you have all of the players who have bought V.I.M, and on the other hand, you have the players who cannot afford it. And obviously, if you have V.I.M, you would be somewhat biased to say that you think it makes the game better, as you have access to all the perks it has to offer. But the same would go for the other side of players. If they don't have V.I.M, who are they to say that it ruins the game? This is a back and forth I've seen players talk about, and honestly, you should talk about it from an honest perspective. I personally see V.I.M as a good thing, not only because it's optional, but because it helps the game grow and it can improve the way you play if you really do play Gorilla Tag a lot. But I think it needs some changes or tweaks that I'll get to in a bit later at the end of the video. Speaking of whether players like V.I.M or not, brings me to my next question. Is V.I.M actually worth buying? A lot of players say V.I.M is too expensive, but I feel like that's how most subscription services are in the first place. I don't feel like any subscription is really too worth it in 2026, but Gorilla Tag having V.I.M as an option in the game is somewhat alright considering it is optional, so you don't need it to continue playing and enjoying the game. Although some players argue that V.I.M is starting to become essential to have an enjoyable experience. I completely disagree with this, as I've had many enjoyable experiences without owning V.I.M, but I see a lot more players talking about how V.I.M is more about Gorilla Tag locking certain things behind closed doors. And I can understand the frustration with this. There are upsides and downsides to any subscription that happens in any multiplayer game, but I do think Gorilla Tag is handling it alright for their first time with something like this. So if V.I.M is locking things behind closed doors, what are all of the features that come with V.I.M? You can host 20-player lobbies, have hand and body tracking, access to the third-party VIP floor in City, gold name tag, more friend slots, higher quality mic audio, Flora's lava map, and probably more features I don't remember off of the top of my head. So you get a ton of features for your money. However, I find it strange of what is going on in the V.I.M VIP area. I recently bought V.I.M to test it out, and when I walked into the VIP area, I was greeted by cosmetics. There were cosmetics sorted in 2 rows, and on the first row, you'll see a free badge that comes with V.I.M, but all of the other cosmetics in the VIP area cost in-game currency, and I found that really weird, as V.I.M does not come with any shiny rocks, and I had just bought V.I.M in-game. So now the game was basically asking me to push my wallet even further, and as a player that had just bought something then felt as if I was asked to buy more, it didn't sit well, as well as the fact that there are V.I.M exclusive cosmetics that you don't get for free even after buying V.I.M. So while I don't think that any subscription is really all that worth it, if you have some extra cash to blow, V.I.M is a good option if you play the game a lot. But some people will disagree with me, and I understand why. But I do think that V.I.M needs some changes and tweaks, and I'll get to what changes I think should be made really soon at the end of the video. Speaking of the end of the video, we're down to our last question. Will V.I.M save Gorilla Tag? The answer is pretty complicated. Obviously, V.I.M helps the game make more money, and that is a good thing, but if you do it the wrong way, it can drive players away. Me personally, I think Gorilla Tag is handling Vim pretty alright, but there are some tweaks that I think should be made. For example, Vim is supposed to be early access to features most of the time, and we have heard from another Axiom, aka Gorilla Tag, that they would release Vim features for free after they were beta tested by Vim users. But after months of waiting, it doesn't seem like this will happen, as hand and body tracking still require Vim to be able to be used. I really wish that they would change this so after some months of testing these features, they would be released to the public like they had promised. This is the major change that I think should be made because it satisfies all of the players on the game at once. Players who don't have Vim or can't afford it will still get new features, but Vim members still get to have something special by having them early. Obviously, I'm not flaming Gorilla Tag. Any game you play will always have imperfections, but it honestly is worth talking about. Alright, so while I was editing this video, Gorilla Tag actually came out with an announcement where they said that they were going to be implementing the changes that I wanted. So thank you so much, Gorilla Tag. But maybe Gorilla Tag just isn't about Vim or any of these in-game add-ons. Sure, they are nice, but what if we were supposed to focus on what makes Gorilla Tag special? The people we meet.